So hello everybody and welcome to this project. So in this project we're going to build a Pomodoro timer. I think actually everybody knows this Pomodoro timer system, right? You have a focus session and then you have a break session, then again you have a focus session, you have a long break session, and at last again you have a focus session, so that you can balance everything out, having a focus session and also having a break. So to just demonstrate you the app, here we can just select any time we want between 0 minutes and 55 minutes. For now the default will be 25 minutes. If I want, I can just change this. For example, if I click on this, there you go, 5 minutes, and if I click on this button, the timer will start to run. And if the timer becomes 0, then we'll have a break session. Then our also background color will change. So to show that to you guys, I'll just change everything to 10 seconds and 5 seconds so that we don't have to wait so long to see the whole updates. So just give me a moment, I'll just change the value so that you guys can see the live demonstration of this app. So to show you guys the actual demonstration of this app, I just changed the values to 10 seconds of focus and 5 seconds of break. So for now, let's actually just start the timer. We just have to wait 10 seconds and not 5 minutes because that's too much, right? So okay, let's wait. If the timer becomes 0, you will see the round will also increase and also the goal will increase, and our background color will also change. There you go, perfect. We have a break session. Now it will become blue. We have a 5 seconds of break session, and then again we have a focus session of 10 seconds. So here, as you see, the round will also increase and also the goals will increase for every focus session. Let's just wait. And there you go, we have again a break session, so the round 2 and goal 2, and again we can stop. There you go, we again have a focus session, and it just continues like that, right? So here you can also see we have a long break of 10 seconds. So that's actually basically the idea of the Pomodoro timer, right? We have break, we have a focus session. So it's a really popular and famous productive system. So the other functionalities of this app are, for example, you can also pause the timer. For example, like, so if I click on this, the timer will be paused, and if I also want, I can just restart everything. So I can just click on this restart button and everything will come to the begin. Again, I can click on this button and the Pomodoro timer will start from the beginning. And to actually build this app, we're going to use change notifiers. So we're going to use the provider package for state management. We're not going to use set state or something like that. We're going to use something new. We're going to use the provider package. And the demonstration and the functionality of the app is, first of all, we have to build this timer card. So we have to implement timer. We also have to implement this selecting the options, and we also have to implement the timer here, and also we have to implement increasing the rounds and goals. So that's going to be a really fun project. You can just add this to your resume, or you can just use this app, right? If you want to be productive, you can just use your own Pomodoro timer app, so you don't have to download it from the Google Play Store. You're also going to learn lots of new things. So I'm just excited about this project. Let me just see you in the coding tutorials. So hey guys, I've created a new folder named Pomodoro. Let's actually first of all build out the UI before we implement the state management and our timer. But let's actually get some packages before we code out our UI. So let's go to prospect.yaml and get 2 packages. So the first package is going to be the provider package for managing our state. Then we have the Google Fonts package for configuring our fonts. And that's it, we are only going to get 2 packages. Now let's go to main.dart and build out a UI. So first of all, I'm going to do some cleanup. I'm going to just delete everything from here and close this material app. And in the material app, I will just disable the debug banner. So I'll say debug show check mode banner is going to be false. Then I'm going to also give a home. So the home of this material app is going to be a new screen. So the screen is going to be a Pomodoro screen. And I have to actually create that widget later on. Let's take this name and let's create a new file named Pomodoro screen. Let's import Flutter here. Let's create a stateless widget because we're not going to have any state, because we're going to use the provider package and change notifier. So we're not going to use that state. That's why I'm going to just have a stateless widget. I'm going to import this file from here. I kind of can't import it. I'll just do it manually here. Don't know. Pomodoro screen. There you go. I have it. And let's first of all return a scaffold so that we have a white blank screen and we can give a app bar. So I'll say return scaffold. I'll just save everything. So I'll just click on save all. Now it's going to perform hot roller and we should have a white screen because I'm just returning a scaffold. There you go, I have a white screen. And now let's actually build out our app bar. So
I say app bar is going to be the app bar widget. And in the app bar widget, I'm going to first of all give some elevation for this app bar. So I just wanted to mix this with the body of the whole scaffold. So I'll say elevation is 0. I don't want that kind of elevation. And then I'm going to have a background color. So background color for now is going to be colors dot the red accent one, because later on when we have a break session, then we'll have the light blue color, but for now we'll have just the red color, and later on when we implement the state, we'll change it. And the title of this whole app bar is going to be Pomo Timer. So our app name, we can just say Pomo Timer, and then I give a style. So the style is going to be, we're going to actually create a separate function for this. So let's actually go to the lib folder and create a new file named utils.dart. Let's import Flutter here. Let's also import the Google Fonts package. Let's create actually a new function which returns a text style. So as a text style, it takes in a double font size. It takes in as optional parameters a color and also a font weight, how bold it is. Then I can return the Google Fonts one. So I'll say Google Fonts dot, I'll just use the Montserrat font. You can just use any font you want, but for now I'll just use a Montserrat font, and I have to give a font size. So the font size, just take this parameter as a font size. So I'll just pass in the size, and also the color, just take this color argument, and also the font weight, just take in this FW parameter. Perfect. Now we can call this function wherever we want. We just have to pass in the optional parameters, and we will have that kind of style. So style, text style. Let's import utils.dart. Somehow, I don't know, maybe it's a problem of my VS Code. I can't auto import it. Maybe I have to update it once or something like that. Okay, text style, let's actually say 25 pixels. And the color is going to be colors.white. And also the font weight, let's make it quite bold. So I'll say font weight of W700. Now when I save everything, and I should have a red app bar with a title named Pomo Timer. There you go. I have an app bar with the Pomo Timer with the Montserrat font. So before I go on, I want to actually give somebody some credits. So I don't own this UI. It's like I didn't create this UI on my own. I got this UI from dribble.com, where you can just find lots and lots of UIs. So okay, we have the title. Let's actually give a button. So at the right side of the app bar, I'll have a reset button. So when the user clicks on it, he can actually reset the timer and so on. So you can just reset the Pomodoro timer and the actions. So to give an icon, we have to actually say actions. To put an icon before this text here, we have to say leading, but I'll have icons at the right side of my whole app bar. So I'm going to use an icon button. I actually want to only have one button, that's why, but in this actions we can actually provide multiple buttons. So our icon is the reset button. So I'm gonna just find it, maybe refresh. Yeah, we're gonna just use this refresh button, and the color is actually obviously going to be colors.white, so that it has a contrast with this red app bar. And on pressed, for now we'll do nothing, but later on we'll implement the on pressed actions. Also when a user clicks on the button, actually we have to reset the whole timer. And let's also give an icon size. So icon size in this icon button is going to be 40 pixels. Let's save everything, and we should have a Pomo Timer app bar with a reset button. There you go, perfect. Now as a body of this whole scaffold, we'll also have a red color. That's why I give elevation 0, so that I can, like, this app bar mixes in with the body of the scaffold. So in scaffold, I'll say background color is gonna be the colors.red accent, and let's save everything. We should have that red color. There you go, have a red accent background color. And let's give the body of the scaffold. So the body of the scaffold is going to be a single child scroll view, because of course my page is kind of scrollable. I want it kind of to be responsive, right? And a single child scroll view, I'll say child is going to be container, because now I'm going to align everything in the center. So child container, that I can give some alignment. and for the alignment, I'll say alignment dot center. Okay, perfect. And let's say the child of this whole container is going to be a column because I have multiple widgets beneath each other. So this column takes in children, and let's actually have some spacing from the upside. So from the top, I want to have 15 pixels of spacing, so I'll use a empty sized box, 15 pixels. And now we're going to actually create separate widgets. So we're going to have 4 widgets. The one is a timer card widget. So let's actually just look at the UI. So here we're going to have a timer card widget, then we're going to have timer options widget, then I'm going to have a timer controller widget, then I'm going to have the current progress widget. So for that, I create a separate folder in the lib folder itself and call it widgets, and in that folder we'll have all the widgets. So the first widget is going to be the timer card dot. Let's actually import Flutter here, material dot. Let's have a stateless widget because we're not going to use set state. I'll say timer card, and here we're going to return actually yes a container, but also kind of like a row, because I have, first of all I have the focus title, then I have timer card, so I kind of have to have a column, and in the column I have a row, right? So I'll return a column because I have 2 elements beneath each other. One is the title, like what we're currently doing, are we focusing or is it the break session? So we'll have like the title of the whole session. So I'll say children. So the first one is going to be a text. So text is just going to be, for now I'll just write focus, but later on I'll do it dynamically with variables. For now I'll just hard code the values, so because I'm just building out the UI, and I can use a text style function. So I can say 35 pixels, and also the color I can just say colors.white, and the font weight, let me actually use the font weight of W700. So I'll call this timer card in the Pomodoro screen so that we can see the live updates. So I'm going to just use this timer card and go to Pomodoro screen, and after the sized box I'll just say timer card so that I can see the live updates of the UI. Timer card is auto imported. Now let me just save everything, and we should have the title with the text of focus. There you go, focus. And down there now we'll have the actual timer cards. So I'll have some spacing, so I'll use a sized box again. I'll have a spacing of 20 pixels, and then I'll have a row. In a row I'll have 2 elements next to each other. So row, and the main axis alignment, so everything should be kind of in the center. So I'll use the main axis alignment dot center, and I have 3 children. So the first child is going to be the actual container. You can see this white container. In that white container we have a text like whatever minute are we in. So I'm gonna say container, and let's actually decorate our container. So we're gonna give a color, and first of all let's actually give a width so that we have a responsive width. So I'll have it a responsive width because I don't want it to be dynamic. I don't want it to be hard coded so that it's not responsive, right? So I'll use a media query to have a responsive widgets. I'll say media query dot of context dot size dot width. So take the whole width and divide it by 3.2. So I have only 32% of the whole width because I already tested it out. Then I have the desired width, and then also I have a height 170 pixels, and now I can decorate this whole container. So I'll say decoration is a box decoration, and let's give a color. Color is going to be colors.white, and let's also give a border radius. So we'll have a small border radius maybe of 15 pixels. So that's a border radius of circular 15 pixels, and let's actually give a shadow for this whole container. So I'm gonna have a box shadow, so I can use the box shadow property here, and it takes in a list of box shadow widgets. We're gonna only have one box shadow widget, so I can say box shadow, and takes in a color. So I'm gonna have a gray color with an opacity. I'm going to say colors.gray with opacity of 0.5. And now we have to also, for the box shadow, give a spread radius. So the radius which is going to be spreaded, so the shadow which is going to be spreaded is going to be 4, and also the blur. So how much blur do we want? I can just say 4. You can just try out the values. Maybe you can just increase and see how it looks when you increase the value. And also let's give an offset of offset widget 0 and 2 as x and y values. And I wrote everything correctly. Okay, now let me actually just save this, and we should have a white container with a box shadow with a border radius. There you go. I have a slight box shadow, you can see, maybe the gray color, then but I also have the white, and I also have the border radius of 15 pixels. Okay, perfect. So we have the container, and next to the container I'm gonna actually give some sized box. So as a sized box of width, so width is going to be 10 pixels. And now I'm going to have the double points. So I'll have the double points which are going to just, which is going to be actually just a text widget. So I'll say this double points, but I have to actually see the double points, so I'll make it a bigger. So I'll say text style. We can actually just say 60 pixels of font size so that we can see that actual text. And I'll use the colors dot red, but with an opacity, like I'll just make a light red color. It's not kind of reddish, it's just a light red color. And let's actually give a font weight. So I'll say just font weight that bold. So I just want to see that semicolon, I just want to see the double point, so I'll just say font weight dot bold. And after creating the font weight, let's actually save it and see if we have our text. Okay, we have our text, but I can't see the text. Maybe we have an error or something like that. Like I don't have any errors, but I can't see the text somehow. Let's actually go to terminal and see if we have any errors. I guess I have an error. Okay, I accidentally imported this package. I don't want this package. I don't know how I imported it. It was just an accident. Let's save now everything, and we should have our double points text, and there you go, I have it. Okay, I can see it, it's quite bold. And let's actually do the same container for the other one also. I'm gonna just copy the code for the container over here, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the other thing also. So again, let me just give some sized box, so I'll just have some spacing in the width. So I'll say sized box of width 10, because this time we are in a horizontal way. I'm gonna paste this container. Let's save everything. We should have another container for the seconds. So at the left side we'll have the minutes, at the right side we'll have the seconds. So we can't see the minutes and seconds, right? So let's actually provide those values also. So the child of these containers are gonna be a text widgets, but which are in the center of the whole container. So I'm gonna just use the center widget, and the child of this will gonna be just a text. For now, let's just say 12. Again, I'm just hard coding it. Later on I'll just do it dynamically with my actual variables. So I'll say text style is going to be 17 pixels, and the color is also going to be colors.red accent, but later on we'll change it also depending on the session. If we are in a break session, I'll have a blue color, and also I'll have a font weight. So I'll say font weight dot bold, and I'm going to just pretty much do the same thing for the seconds also, but I'll just say 0 0. Okay, let's save everything, and we should have also our text. There you go, 12 and 0 0. Okay, perfect. Now we're finished with the timer card. Now let's go and make the timer options. So after finishing up the timer card, let's actually provide also a widget which is named timer options. So with the timer options widget, we're going to actually have the options to select whichever time we want. For example, if the user wants to change it to 25 minutes, 30 minutes, or 10 minutes, because he can obviously change it, because Pomodoro works like we'll have 25 minutes of focus, then you'll have 5 minutes break, then you'll have 25 minutes of focus, 5 minutes break, 25 minutes of focus, 5 minutes break, and then at last we'll have 25 minutes of focus. At last you'll have the long break of 25. So that is how it works. For example, if the user would just want to focus for 30 minutes, obviously you can change it, because we don't want to necessarily put 25. So default value will be 25, but if the user really wants, he can just change the values. So that's why I'm gonna have a widget with the options provided. So I'm gonna create a new file in the widgets folder named time options dot dart. I just sorry, it's dot, not da, dot, and let's gonna import Flutter material.dart. Let's create a stateful widget, not a stateful, stateless widget, because we're not going to have any state, as we're going to use a provider package. So we're going to have a state, I mean we're going to have of course a state, but we're going to not use a state function. So I'm going to have time options, and this one, it returns a single child scroll view, because here you can see in the UI we have this kind of options, right? So of course they're scrollable, so that's why I'm going to have a single child scroll view. Single child scroll view, but this time it's not horizontal, like it's not vertical, it's going to be horizontal. So I'm going to say scroll direction axis dot horizontal. There you go, left and right. And after providing the scroll direction, let's actually have a child of this. So a child of this is going to be a row, and now we'll have multiple children's. And again, of course I don't want to write the separate children's. For example, if I have 10 options, I don't want to write 10 times the whole widgets, right? It's really, first of all, it's not efficient code. We don't want that much of code. It's also not a clever code. So we can of course use some functions which are provided by Flutter by doing it dynamically. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to utilist.dart and create a list of selectable times. So I'm going to say list selectable times, and how we're going to actually provide, like how we're going to actually deal with the timers is we're going to have the timers in seconds. So to manage the time, we can have it in seconds, then we can actually convert it back to minutes and seconds. So this is pretty much easy, but later on when we implement the actual timer, you will understand the principle. So I'll have selectable time. So for example, I have 5 minutes, but I want to actually change it to seconds, and then when rendering out the UI, I want to change it to the minutes. So for example, how many seconds are 5 minutes? So it's just 5 into 6, so 360, it's just 300. And then I have 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, how many seconds? It's going to be just 600 seconds. Then I'm going to have 15 minutes, 900 seconds, and then I'm going to have 20 minutes, so 1200. Then I'm going to 25 widgets, 1500. Then I'm gonna of course also have the 30 minutes, so 1800. Then I have 35, it's 1800, 2100. Then I have the how much, 40, yeah, I think it's 40, wait, oh yeah, it's 40, so 2400. And then 45 minutes is 2700, and 50 minutes is gonna be, how much is 50 minutes? It's gonna be 3000. Then I'm gonna have at last 55 minutes, it's gonna be 3300. So these are all the selectable times, but which are in seconds. For example, this is actually 5 minutes, okay, this is going to be 10 minutes, and so on. So I can take selectable times list and go to the options widget, so time options widget, and I can just use the map function to run a for loop through the selectable times list and render out each text so that I can just dynamically have the widgets. So I'm going to selectable times dot map, which is going to create an iteration. Let's actually import. So I'm going to say selectable times dot map. I'm going to use the iterable, and whenever we use dot map, we have to actually call it dot to list so that we don't have that error anymore. And let's return something here. So this is going to just provide us the time which we can actually select. So I can just call this time instead of saying e. So here I'm going to just call it time. And now let's actually think how we can convert the seconds back to minutes. So it's pretty much easy. For example, if I have 500 seconds in minutes, we can easily do it. We can just say 500 divided by 60. And it's also for example 1200. I can, of course, to convert it back to minutes, I can just say 1200 divided by 60. This is how you actually do it. And let's also have a variable here. So I'm gonna have string select, not string, actually an integer or a double selected time. So this is a selected time which user has selected. For example, he selected default, as I said, it's going to 25 minutes. So 25 minutes in seconds is going to be 1500, because I use this variable to actually dynamically render out the widgets. So here the time, I'm going to return a container, which is going to have a margin. So I'm going to say margin. From the left side is going to have 10 pixels of margin. So I'm going to say edge insets dot only. From the left side, take 10 pixels of margin, and also just take width of 70 pixels and the height of 50 pixels. Now let's decorate this whole container. So I'm going to say decoration is going to be a box decoration. So I'm going to first of all have border. So you can see in the UI, the selected time is going to have a white color, and this non-selectable times, like the non-selected times, are going to have a border of a gray color, or like a light white color, but you can't actually see it. So it's more focused on a selected time. Let's do the same thing here. First of all, let's say decoration is box decoration. Let's first of all give a border for everything. So border is going to be border dot all. So all size, a border with a width of 3, and also the colors dot white 30. So it's going to have a 30% of opacity. And let's actually give a border radius. So I'm going to say border radius dot circular of 5 pixels. And now when I save everything, actually let's call this time options at a Pomodoro screen so that we can see the live updates, right? So here I'm going to have some spacing between this one and the other widget. So I'm going to have 40 pixels of spacing. I'm going to just call this time options widgets. Let's save everything, and we should have a single child scroll view with the multiple containers with a margin of 10 pixels. There you go. We see all the containers with the slight border, and let's actually provide a text also. So the child of the whole container is going to be in the center, a text widget. After this box decoration, I'm going to say child is going to be a center. So in the center, it's going to have a text widget. So child of this one is going to be a text widget. And now let's actually calculate the text widget. So for example, we're going to get the time as a string, because we can't iterate through an integer list. We can't do it for the children. I already tested it out. That's why in the selectable times list, I provided strings. I actually wanted to provide just integers, but I had to make a list of strings, or else it wouldn't work for the row. So for example, if I had 300 seconds in a string, let's convert it back to an integer. So child text. So let's convert it back to an integer. I'm going to have it in brackets, say int dot parse the time. So I'm going to just convert it back to an integer. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a float division. So I'm going to not do a complete division. So for float division, I have to use this one and the divide symbol, and then I have to say divide by 60. And after divided by 60, I have the seconds, and then I'm going to divide it by 60. Then I'm going to convert it back to a string, because I have to provide a string for a text widget. And now we can give some styling. So I'll say style is going to be just a text style function. Text style function, and in the text style function, I'm going to have a color and a font size. So the font size is going to be 25 pixels, and the color is going to be the colors.white. For example, no, let's actually say red accent. Let's actually give red accent when we have the non-selectable container. Then when we have the non-selected container, so colors.red accent, and then we also have the font weight.w700. Okay, so let me just perform a hot reload, and we should have it. We should have a text, but I have an error. I don't know why, but I can't see any text. Maybe I just have to do a full restart so that it just gets updated with this .map function. Okay, after doing a full restart, nothing is happening, and I think I know the problem. Okay, the background color is a red accent, and also for the text I give a red accent, right? So it won't work. So I have to say colors.white. Now we should have the text value, and there you go. I have the text value, but I have a problem here. This is kind of weird. I didn't want it to do that. Okay, this shouldn't be 3000. Okay, this shouldn't be 33,000. Should be 3,300. Now let's test it out if we have any updates. Okay, the problems. Okay, I didn't give any comma here, so let me just give a comma, and this time it should work without any problems. Okay, I have to do a full reset again because this should actually map it again. And there you go. Now I don't have any errors, so the seconds are now converted back to minutes, and I can actually just scroll through the whole options. There you go, because I'm in a single child scroll view. Now let's say if I selected something, that container should be white. So let's go to time options. That's why I created a dummy value here, selected time. And what I'm going to do here in the decoration is if the time, so if int.parse, so again I'm going to convert it back to an integer, int.parse time is equal to the double dot time. I mean, is equal to the selected time. Then what we're going to do is if it is equal to that one, then we're going to have another box decoration. So I'm going to say box decoration, or else if it is not selected, then you can just have this with the border box decoration. But if it is selected, we're not going to have any border. We're not going to have any border, but this time we'll have a color. So the color is going to be colors.white. And the same thing we'll do also with the text type. For example, if it is equals to this one, the color is going to be colors.red accent, because the red color is going to be visible in the white container. And if it is not selected, then just use the white color. And when I save everything now, the 25 one should be selected, because I say selected time is, for now the default value is 1500 seconds. This is just equal to 25 minutes. And there you go, this is a white container now, so everything else is a normal container, but as I selected this, there's going to be 25. And the timer card also, let's change it back to 25 because the default value is 25. Again, later on I'll do it dynamically. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a scroll position. So this 25 every time should be in the middle. As you can see also in the UI, this 25 is every time in the middle of the whole screen. So I can give a scroll position for the single child scroll view. So I just have to go to time options and go to the single child scroll view, and I have to give a scroll controller. Controller is scroll controller, and in the scroll controller I can give an initial offset. So I already calculated it. It was like 155. When I provide 155, 25 will be correctly in the middle. Let me just do a full restart so that I can see the UI update. There you go, 25 is perfectly in the middle. And that's it for the time options. Now let's go and implement the play and resume button. Okay, so now let's render out our time controller so that we can actually control the time. So we'll have a play button, also a resume button. So again, I'm going to create a new file here named time controller. So this is not the controller for the state, this is just a time controller like regarding the UI. Later on we'll create a time service for a state, but we'll come to later on. So let's import flutter material.dart and let's create a stateful widget with a time controller. So I'm going to say time controller, and I'm going to just call this widget in the Pomodoro screen. So I'm going to give some size box of 40 pixels, spacing, height 40. Then I'm going to just call this time controller so that I can see some live UI updates. Let's go to time controller dot and let's actually return a icon. So first of all, I'll just return a container, because as you can see in the UI, I have this black container, and in the center of the black container I actually have the icon button. So I'll return a container with a width of 100 pixels and height of 100 pixels, and let's actually give a color. So I'll say decoration is box decoration, and the color I'm going to provide is the colors.black but with an opacity, so I'll say colors.black 26. And then also I'm going to give a shape for this whole container. So shape for it is going to be a box shape.circle, and child of this is going to be in the center a text widget which says, no, not a text, I just forgot it, not text widget, actually it's an icon, right? I just forgot it. So I'll use the icon button so that I can directly use the on pressed action. So I'll say icon button. Icon is an icons dot. So for now I'm going to just have the pause button, but later on, depending on the state, so depending on if we are playing or not, then we'll have the play button or the pause button. For now I'll just have the pause button, and the on pressed action for now will do nothing. And let's actually give a color. So let's provide a color, and the color of this whole icon is going to be colors.white, and also an icon size of this whole icon button is going to be 55 pixels. Let's save everything, and we should have our time controller widget. So we should have the black container. In the center of the black container we have a white colored pause button. Okay, perfect. So this is it for the time controller widget. This was just a basic UI. Now let's do the last step. So we have to implement this progress widget. So okay, the last step is providing the progress widget here so that we can see how many, in which round we are and in which goal we are. So let's create a new widget. So let's create a new file named progress widget, which is going to show our current progress. So I'm going to say progress widget dot. Again, I'm going to just import Flutter, material.dart. I'm going to create a stateless widget because I won't have a set state or something like that. And in the progress widget, it's pretty much simple. We just have a column, and in that column we'll have two rows. See, you can see two columns, like you can see one column, and then in the column we have two rows. This is the first row, this is the other row. So I have to just give a name for this. So I'll say progress widget, and let's return a column because I'll have elements beneath each other, and return a column. And in the column I'll actually say, I didn't mean it like this, so return column, and the children of the column are gonna be two rows. So the first one is gonna be a normal row with the current round. The children is gonna be a text widget, so we're just gonna just say 0, and then so we're at the first round, so I'll just say 0. Then from 4 rounds we're at the first round, and then the style I can use the text style function. I'll just say 30 pixels of font size, and the color is going to be just the gray color. So I'm going to say colors.gray 350. So it's going to be just a light gray, not that much of gray. And also the font weight, let's make it quite bold. So I'll say font weight W700. I can actually just pretty much say dot bold is also okay. And after the text widget, so after the round widget, then we'll have also a text widget for the current goals. So I'll say 0 divided by 12, so 0 from 12. And let's actually also align everything. So I'll say main axis alignment. In the main axis, align everything with a space evenly. Main axis alignment dot space evenly. Let's use this progress widget and render it in a Pomodoro screen. So let's go to Pomodoro screen, and after this I'll have a sized box of height 40 pixels. And after that I will just render out my progress widget. Perfect. Now we can just see the live UI updates. Let me just save everything, and we should see our progress widget. There you go, 0 from 4 and 0 from 12. And after that row I will have also the titles, so the user knows like what this means. So this is the current round, this is the goal, this is how Pomodoro works. And I'll just copy this row and say round and goal, and between these both rows I'll have some spacing. So between these I'll have a sized box with a height of 10 pixels. So I have just 10 pixels of spacing. Let me now save everything, and we should have our round and goal. Okay, perfect. Let's actually make this bit smaller, so I'll say 25 pixels. So I'll just make the titles a bit smaller, round and goal. Okay, perfect. And I kind of think that we gave too much of sized boxes somewhere. So let's go to Pomodoro screen and see. Okay, this is 40. Okay, let's actually make 30 pixels so that it's kind of in the center. It's not that much at the bottom. Yeah, this is perfect. It is really perfect. Okay, and this is for the UI of the whole screens. Actually, pretty much really finished with the UI of the screens. Now actually we have to implement the core functionality of the app, the timers and also the state, so that I can just select other times. I can also pause this, I can resume this, I can also pause this and play this. I can also see the current round and also the current goal, and I have to also implement the reset functionality. So after rendering out the whole UI of our app, let's actually implement the state. So let's actually deal with the selectable options here. So let's actually implement this one before we implement the timer. So let's actually create a service file where I have my state, which is a change notifier. So I create in the lib folder a timer service file, timer service dot. I'll import Flutter here, and actually I don't need Flutter, I guess, but I'll just, yeah, I need it because I'm using the change notifier here, right? So I'll import Flutter material.dart, and let's create a class named timer service, which extends the change notifier. And here we can actually deal with the variables. So first of all, I'm going to have a timer. We'll implement it later, but I'll just say timer. I create a variable which is a type of a timer, and I have to import this from the async, I guess. Yeah, import library.async. And then I'm going to have the current duration. So what is the current duration? So default duration, I can just say, is 1500 for 25 minutes. So 1500 seconds at 25 minutes. We'll convert it back to a string and separate seconds. Then we render it out in our UI. But for now, here in my timer service state manager, I should just double current duration is 1500 seconds, and let's also say selected time. So I want to have control of the time which is selected, so at that I can deal with the selectable options here. So I'll say double selected time is 10, not 10, 1500. So the default selectable time is 1500 seconds, so 25 minutes. And let's create a function. So I'll say void select time, select time, which is going to select the time. So it's going to take the double seconds as a parameter. So I'll say double seconds. And then what it's going to do is it's going to actually see the selected time is going to be equal to whichever seconds I provided in the function. So I'll say seconds. And also the current duration variable is going to also change to whichever seconds I provided in the parameter. And for example, if I'm listening to these changes, it's like set state, we have to call this notify listeners, right? It's going to notify all the listeners which are going to listen to these changes, then it's going to update the UI. But nowhere we're actually implementing this function, right? So let's go to time options.dart and in a single child scroll view. Okay, this is all, everything is perfect. Somewhere we have to use it, right? So here, up here, yeah, okay. After this build context, let's actually create a variable named provider, which is gonna be the actual provider. So that's why I use this provider package. So I can just use the provider. I can just say provider dot off context. So to actually use this timer service, I have to use the provider dot off context, and I have to say in which type. So the type of this is going to be timer service. Now what I can do is, see, I can now, like, I have now the access of all parameters which are there, like all the variables which are there in the timer service. For example, if I wouldn't define the type of this, when I say point C, I can't do anything. So I have to define the type of this provider. So provider dot off timer service, like off timer service context. And here I'm going to say off context. Okay, now I can use this provider like this. So what I'm going to do is, instead of saying okay int parse time is equal to selected time, So I'll just delete this variable. I don't need this variable here. Is equal to selected time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say provider dot selected time. So the variable which I provided in the provider file, like in the timer service file, I'm going to say provider selected time. So the same thing, I'm going to do it here. I have it. Okay, I have to say provider selected time, right? Not selected time. I have to say provider dot selected time. Let me just copy paste it. There you go, provider selected time. Now let's wrap this container also into an inkwell so that when I press on each button I have to do something. So I have to actually call the provider dot select time. So what I can do is on tap provider dot select time, and we have to actually provide the seconds. So the seconds is going to be just this time, but when I say time I will have an error because the select time function actually requires a double, but I'm providing a string. So let's convert it back to a double. So I'll say double dot parse time to provide the actual time. Now when I save everything, I should actually have some UI updates. So for example, okay, I have an error could not find a correct provider timer service about this time option switch. Okay, I just completely forgot it. You have to actually provide the change notify provider at the top of the widget. So let's go to main.dart. So that I can use this provider timer service, I have to have a change notify provider. So let's go to main.dart, and here when saying my app, I'm going to say run app, the change notify provider. Change notify provider, it takes in, yeah, okay, create, we're going to create in something, but for example I have to, but first of all I have to say which type this is. So I'm going to say type timer service. This change notify provider is going to take a timer service, and also it's going to create here, it's going to take a build context, but I'm going to just create the timer service. Perfect. Now the child of this is going to be the run, like this my app. Now when I do the full restart, I won't have this error anymore because now I have a change notify provider. There you go, I don't have an error anymore because now I have a change notify provider at the top of the whole widget 3, which is going to have a timer service as the type, and we are creating the instance here, a timer service. Okay, and now we can go to time options and work there. So let's go to time options. Yeah, pretty much when I select on 20, now this will be selected, you will see it. There you go, when I press on 20, this will be selected because this is going to be equals to, in the select time function, what I'm going to do is I'm getting the 20 as seconds, so I'm getting 1200 as seconds, and I'm saying change the selected time variable to the seconds which are provided in the select time function, and at time options I am getting it. So I'm checking here if the current time is equal to the provider selected time. So for example, yes, 20 is equal to selected time for example now is 20 seconds, like how many seconds, 21,200 seconds, then it's going to provide the white container. For example, the other ones which are not selected are going to just have a border. So see, it's also working for the others. There you go, 25, 30, 15, 20. So after providing the state for the options, let's actually also provide the state for our timer up here. So we can do it also really easily. Let's go to timer card and get an instance of the provider. So I'll just here say find a provider. I'm going to just copy something. And time options, I'm going to just copy this one and put it over here in a timer card. Perfect. Let's actually import these stuff. Import also provider. Okay, now what I can say is provider. I can use this. For example, in a timer service, we had the current duration is 1500. Now how to convert it back to minutes is a separate seconds. For example, 1510 is 25 minutes and 10 seconds. 1501 is 25 minutes and 1 second. So how to get a separate seconds from these seconds? So this is pretty much simple. Let's go to timer card, and instead of saying 25, we already learned how we can implement the minutes, right? We just have to use a float division. So let's do it here. I can just say current duration, like provider.current duration, provider.current duration, float division. I'm going to do a float division 60, and I have to get it into a string. So I'll just say dot to string to convert it back to a string. Now when I save everything, I will see 25, but this time I really have the variable, so I'm not hard coding it. I really have control of this variable, and I can change the variable whenever I want it to change. There you go, 20, because the selected time was 20. Now when I click on 30, this will automatically change. So when I click on 15, see, this is changed. 25, this is changed. So that means yes, our state is working perfectly. Let's also implement the seconds. So I hard coded 00 here. So now how to get the separate seconds? Let's do an example. So for example, if I have 60 seconds, then it's 1 minute, right? How we're gonna do it? We're gonna just say 60. So we're gonna actually say 60 divided by 60. This is how we get 1 minute. Now if I have 61 seconds, this is 1 minute and 1 seconds. So how we're gonna do it, that one? So we're gonna easily get the minutes by saying 61 float division. So of course here also we're gonna do a float division. 61 float division 60 is 1, was just the nearest number without any decimal number. Now to get the seconds also pretty much easy. We just have to get the reminder. So for example, this is how we get the minutes. Now to get the seconds, I have to say 61 modulo 60 to get the reminder. For example, now 61 reminder of this one is actually 1, and this is 1 seconds. And for 62 is also pretty much the same principle. It's 1 minute. I don't know, something has happened with my keyboard. Yeah, the keyboard was changed. So now 62 seconds are 1 minute and 2 seconds. Now to get the minutes, we're gonna say 62 float division 60. This is how we get the 1 minute here. And to get the 2 seconds here, we just have to get a reminder. So we just say 61 modulo, not 61, 62 modulo 60 to get a reminder. So the reminder is going to be 2, and this is how we get the 2 seconds here. So we can do it also here. This same technique, we're gonna just say int dot, not int dot parse, just the provider dot current duration modulo 60. So to get the reminder, now it's converted back to a string. So I said to string. Now when I save everything, I will have 0. There you go, 0.0. But I don't want it to have decimal numbers, so I'll convert it back to an integer. Now how to convert double into an integer? We just have to call the dot round. So I'll say dot round dot to string. Now when I save everything, I should have the rounded value. So this double is now is going to be converted back to integer. There you go, I have a 0. But again, the problem is I want to have 0 0, right? It just looks beautiful. For example, if I have 59 seconds, it will be 59, but only for the 0 we'll have 0 0. So how to handle that one? So this is a really quick fix. What we have to do is we have to actually check if the current one is actually is equal to 0, then we're going to change it back to a double 0. So what I'm going to do here is the text the provider. So let's actually create a variable seconds here. So I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to just take this and paste it over here so that I don't have to write it again and again. So I'm going to just take the seconds variable. Instead of saying provider, I can just say seconds.round. Now to check the actual value, so I can just say seconds. If the seconds is equal to 0, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate string. So I'll do a string interpolation, so I have variable in a string, so I can just say seconds dot round to convert it back to a integer, and then I'm gonna again just hard codingly add a 0. So for example, in this case our seconds is equal to 0, then it's gonna take the seconds dot round, so it's gonna provide a 0 here, and next to it it's also gonna just render out another 0. But if the second is not equal to 0, for example it's 59, it's gonna just render out 59 here without any extra 0. Now when I save this, I'll have that extra 0 whenever our seconds is equal to 0. So for example, now we'll have 0 0. There you go, 0 0. Perfect. This is also working. So see, when I click on 15 also, this has been changed and everything is working perfectly. So now let's actually implement the core functionality of our app, the timer. So when I click, I should have a play button, and when I click on this, it should actually play the timer. Okay, now let's actually implement the timer. So let's go to timer service.dart and create again a variable named just the current state and also the timer playing. So let's actually check if the timer is playing or not. So I create a boolean variable which is just timer playing. If the timer is playing, then I have the pause button. If the timer is not playing, I have the play button. So the default is going to be timer playing is going to be false. At the beginning it's going to be false. So I can use this timer playing variable. I can just go to time controller dot I can just get the provider, so I'll just say provider final provider. I can just say provider dot, oh, do you know what, I'll just copy this one from here. Timer play. I actually deleted this, so let's go to timer controller and just paste this over here. Let's import this stuff. Okay, perfect. Now I have the provider. Now when rendering out the pause and the play button, I'm going to say if the provider dot timer playing variable is equal to false, then show the play button. If it is true, then show okay. If it is true, then show the pause button. If the timer is playing, then actually it's resume button, right? And then if it is false, that means timer is not playing, then we show the play button. So when the viewer clicks on that, we actually play the whole timer. So I'm going to say icon start play, and let's, okay, there isn't no play button. Let's maybe say play. Okay, it's actually named play arrow, so I use the play arrow sharp. Now when I save everything, I will have a play arrow and not a resume button because the default value was timer playing was false. There you go, I have the play button. Now let's implement some on pressed actions. So when the user clicks on this button, on pressed, so if the user presses on this button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a function in the timer service itself. So I'm going to say provider dot start, and we have to implement this function in the timer service. So let's actually create a function. Actually this should be up here because this is the important function. I'll say name start. It doesn't take any arguments, but what it's going to do is it's going to actually say timer playing. So when you click on the start, it's going to say timer playing is going to be false. Now so now I can use this timer. Okay, this is a countdown timer that can be configured to fire once or repeatedly. This comes with .async. I can say timer is equal to this timer variable is equal to timer dot periodic. So this is a periodic timer, is actually a repeating timer which is called every interval. So we have to provide the interval, so we have to provide a duration. So duration is actually seconds one. So every second I can implement something here. So every second in this function, actually in this periodic function, I can do something. So what I want to do, I want to actually decrease the current duration. So I can just say current duration minus minus, so decrease by one value every second. So that's what this periodic does. It actually just every second we can just do anything here. It's a repeating timer. And also we want to notify the listener so that the listeners know that we are changing it. So I'm going to say notify listeners, and I'm going to also create a stop button. So of course I also want to pause everything, right? So I'm going to say void pause. So when we press on the pause button, we actually want to cancel the timer. So I just stop the timer. So I'll say timer.cancel, and the timer playing variable will actually be, it should be actually false, and here it should be true. I just forgot it. Here it should be true. And then also we're gonna of course notify all the listeners. So in the pause button, we are, of course, after changing the values, we have to also call it notify listeners. And I can use this pause function also in the timer controller. So I can't say provider.start every time. Of course I don't want to start every time, only when the timer playing is false I want to say it. So in the timer controller, what we're going to do is, whenever we have the play button, then I want to play the timer. When I have the pause button, then I have to actually pause the whole timer, right? So here I can say timer playing. So if the timer playing variable is true, then I can say provider dot pause, or else provider dot start, and I have to say provider dot, if the provider timer playing is true, then pause this. If it is false, then start the whole timer. And let's actually see if our timer is working. So let's save everything and see if our countdown is working. So for example, every second, what we're gonna do is, okay, we have an error. Let's actually fix that error. Okay, I have to just end it with a semicolon. So what it's going to do is, every 1 second it's going to decrease the current duration variable. It's going to notify the listeners. Now you will see that 25 will be decreased to 24, then 59, because in a timer card we are actually dynamically calculating, we're converting the seconds back to the minutes and seconds, right? So let's call this button and we should see a timer. There you go, 24, 25, 24. Okay, so the timer is actually working and we don't have any errors. But actually I thought we would have an error, because let's go to time controller. Okay, we don't have any errors. I thought we would have any errors. Let's actually press this and everything should be paused. There you go, this is paused and the duration is at the duration. When I click on this again, there you go, the timer is playing. When you click on this, it's going to be paused. When you click on this again, it's going to play. This is how you implement a timer in Flutter. But before actually closing out this section, what I want to do is, so first of all, this round and gold doesn't have the correct color. So I just noticed it a while ago. So what I just want to change the color. So I want to just say colors.white, so that it looks better, like the UI wise it should look beautiful, right? So I'll just say colors.white. Okay, so our timer is working, but what I thought is we would have an error, because whenever calling an on pressed action, we have to say context and then we have to actually say listen is false. So I'm gonna just fix it, because later on we could have an error. So whenever using the on pressed action, here in the context you also have to say listen is false, because we're not listening to anything, we're just playing the button. This is just a small error warning when I was developing this app. I don't know why the error is not coming now, but later on it could come. So to avoid that, just say listen is false and then call .pause, because we're not listening to anything, we're just playing the on pressed button. Okay, I did a full restart. Let's actually again call the timer, and this time okay, we don't have any errors. Now I can also change the whole timer. For example, I can just change it to 15 now. See, automatically it just counts down. Okay, perfect. This is just perfect. And what we have to do now is we have to actually focus on the rounds and goals. For example, after the first round, I want to have a break of 5 minutes. Then I'm gonna again have a focus. Then I'm gonna have a 5 minutes break. Again, I'm gonna then have a focus state. Then I'm gonna have a break, focus, break. Then at last, I'm gonna have a long break. So let's do that. So for every widget, we actually implemented the state, but we have to implement the state for 2 more widgets. First of all, these rounds and goals, and also this focus state should be changed whenever we have a break. And also we have to implement the reset, right? So let's go to timer service and work there. So I'm gonna have an integer. So I'm gonna say int rounds. So at the beginning it's gonna be 0. Again, I'm gonna have int rounds, not rounds, goal. It's going to be 0. Now we have a problem. So for example, if the duration is at 0 seconds, for example, the current duration variable is equal to 0, then we don't want to have negative time, right? We want to do something. We want to change the state. So here in the timer, we have to check for if else statements. So if current duration is equal to 0, then call a function named handle next round. So there we're going to handle the next round, or else yeah, just do the current duration, just decrease the current duration and notify all the listeners. Now let's create this function. So handle next round, I'm going to just say function is, it won't take any arguments, and we have to have lots of if statements here. Let's also actually implement a variable up here. So I'm going to say string current state. So what's the current state? So current state, the default state is going to be focus, but depending on the value, it's going to also be break. We're going to have break and also a long break state. So Pomodoro works like this, right? We have a focus round, then after that we have a break round, then we have a focus round, a break round, and after each focus round, this round variable will actually increase. So to check that, I'm going to say if current state is equal to focus, if it's equal to focus, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it. I want to change the current state to break, just change it to break, and also change the current duration. So the current duration will be equals to, so when we have a break, we have 5 minutes of break, so 5 into 6, so 300 seconds. And then also the selected time will also be 300, and also the round variable will increase by 1 value, and the goal variable also. We have to say rounds here. Okay, this is how you do it for the focus one. Also, then I'm going to have else if statements. So else if current state is equal to break, so if it is equal to break, then current state is equal to focus. So if the current state is break, then we want to change it back to focus, and the current duration is again gonna be, so this time when we want to change it back to focus, again it's gonna be 1500. So again I have to change it back to 25 minutes, and also the selected time is going to be 1500. So we have 2 statements, and also the other statement is I want to also implement the long break. So at the last session, we have a long break and not a 5 minutes break. We will have 25 minutes of break. So else if current state is equal to focus. So if the current state is focus, and also the round is equal to, and the rounds is equal to not and we would do it in Python, but we have to actually say here this one we have to say and if rounds is equal to 3, then we want to change the current state. So I'm going to say current state is equal to the long break state, and the current duration is gonna be, so long break, how many we have 25 minutes of long break, so it's again gonna be 1500, but this time it's a break. And also the duration, so current duration, not current duration, this time selected time, so I would say selected time is also 1500. And the rounds variable will also increase by one value, and also the goal variable. This is for the long break. And at last we'll have a last if else statement. For example, what happens if our current state is equal to long break? Then we also have to do something, right? If our current state is equal to long break, what we want to do is we want to change the current state back to focus. We want to change the current duration, selected times, and so on also. So current duration 1500, selected time is 1500. Also the round should be equals to 0. So I want to just have again rounds after 4 rounds it should actually become 0, and goals it can just increase. And I think we're pretty much finished with the if else statement. So here you can wonder why I didn't implement rounds and goals for the break. So when changing to focus, you won't, in Pomodoro you won't increase the rounds. Only when changing to break you will increase the round. So after finishing each focus session you will actually increase the round. That's why I only increase them here whenever finishing up the focus session. So first of all, let's actually change the variables here, so for the focus and for the rounds, before we test out our whole application. So let's go to timer card, and instead of saying focus, let's actually say provider dot whichever state we're currently in, so current state. And when changing the state values, I think I forgot to implement a notify listeners. Let's go to time service, and here call to notify listeners. So we notify all the listeners which are listening to this events. So notify listeners, and this should actually work. So to test this out, of course I don't want to wait 25 minutes long to test this application. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually just say 10 seconds for a focus session and 5 seconds for the break session, just to test our application out. So current duration, I'll just say 10 seconds, and the selected time is also going to be 10. And when changing the break, I'll just change all occurrences, I'll just say 5. And here also I'll just say 10, change it back to 10. So long break is also going to be 10, because of course I don't want to wait 25 minutes long to test our application out, right? So I'll just work with some dummy values. So I'll just say 10 here, 10, and let's also implement the rounds and goals. So let's go to progress widget. Let's get a provider. So I'll say final provider is the provider which is provided here. So I'll just say provider dot time service dot off context. Paste it over here. Let's import these. Let's import the provider library first of all, and let's also import. Okay, I imported time service. Now let's import provider. So what I can do is, instead of saying 0, I'm going to do a string interpolation, because I'm going to have a variable into a string. So here I'll do a string interpolation. I'll just say provider dot rounds, so whichever current round which we are in. And the same thing I'm going to do for the goal. So I'm going to just say provider dot goal, whichever variable it is in the timer service file. Now let's actually save everything and test our application out. So for example, now we should actually have 10 seconds only because we changed the variable, right? It's better to make a full restart. I'll just do a full restart. There you go. I have 10 seconds as a focus session. Now when I just press on the play button, see, now after some while this focus should be changed to break. So I have a break of 5 seconds. There you go, perfect. Now see, the goal and the round also increases, but after a break the round and goal won't increase, because only after the focus session the round and goal will increase. Now at the 4th round I will have a long break, as you will see. So I have a break in the 2nd round. Now after a 5 seconds break I'll have a 10 seconds long session. Of course in reality we'll have 25 minutes, but we're just testing our application out. Okay, so we have a break. Now after this focus session we should have a long break. We should have a long break. Oh no, we only have a break. So what's the problem? Okay, I got it. The problem is here we're checking if the current state is equal to focus. We're changing automatically to break, right? So if current state is equal to focus and it is not equal to, so and rounds is not equals to 3. So if it's not 3, then only change it to break and so on. If it's 3, then here we're changing it to long break and so on. Okay, so we'll just start from the beginning. This time they should actually work perfectly. I'll just run the timer. Now at the 4th round I will just resume again for you guys so that you don't have to wait so long. So okay, now I'm at the 3rd round focus session. Now as you will see, we will have a long break now. Let's hope we will have a long break. There you go, long break. So we'll have a long break at the end and the round will increase. Now after the long break, now the round will be 0 because we'll again start from the beginning, but the goal will remain like that. There you go, perfect. So it's perfectly working. And let's see if the other values are also working. Yes, they're also working. And now the last thing I want to implement is, of course, I also want to change the colors, right? At the break session I want to have a light blue background color. Also the text value should have a light blue background color, and also not to forget, let's also implement the reset functionalities. So to implement the colors, I'll create a separate function in the utils.dart file. And utils.dart, I'll create a function named render color. So it's going to return a color values. I'll just call it render color, and as a parameter it will take in the current state. So I'll say string pass me in the current state. Then I have an if statement. So if current state is equal to focus, then I'll just return color.red accent, and then else I'll just return light blue color. I'll say return colors dot light blue accent here. Okay, perfect. Now I can use this render color function, and here in our Pomodoro screen, instead of saying colors.red accent here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a render color function, and I'm going to pass in the current state. To get the current state, of course you have to get the access of the provider. So I'll just say provider is just, I just copied this from here and paste it over here. Let's import the files and also the provider package. So here I'm going to just say provider dot current state. Okay, also where do we want to implement it? for the whole body of the whole scaffold should also be changed. Not scaffold, I mean the app bar. Okay, the body of the background color of the scaffold we changed here. Now let's also change for the app bar to the same thing, and let's also change the colors for the text here. For example, it should be blue and not red, so we're gonna do the same thing pretty much. Let's go to timer card, and instead of saying, where do we have it? I'm just searching. So okay, instead of saying color, so red accent, I'm going to call this function render color. Here also I'll just call render color and provide the current state, and at last also the time options. So I'll say time options is, where do we have it? So instead of saying color, so red accent, here I will just render color provider dot current state, whichever state we're currently in, and this should actually pretty much do the job. So let's do a full restart. Let's save everything and do a full restart, and let's do one last check if everything is working, also if the colors are working. So okay, the restart is actually done. Let's test it out. So let's run our timer, and when we have break, so we should have a light blue background color also for the app bars, and also the text should be changed. Let's hope everything will be changed. There you go, perfect. So yeah, it automatically changes to the light blue color, and also now we have the focus, so now we have the red color. Again, it will change, as you will see. There you go, perfect. So that means yes, our implementation is working. Let's also check for the timer options. Okay, let's come to the break and check if the color is also working down here. Okay, let me just press on 25. Okay, there you go, this is also working. Okay, perfect. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to actually implement the reset functionality. So when you clicks on this, you should actually be able to reset the whole stuff. So as a timer service, I can create a new function named reset. So here in the reset functionality, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cancel the whole timer. So I'll just stop the whole timer, the periodic timer. So I'll just say timer.cancel, and the current state I will just change it back to focus. For example, if we are in break, if I click on reset, I will automatically change to focus. Also the current duration and the selected time is going to be changed to 1500, so 25 minutes, and our rounds and goal are also going to change to 0, and our timer playing boolean variable is going to be changed to false. So we'll just stop the timer. So we'll just stop here, the icon, we'll have a play icon then, and of course we'll have to call the notify listeners to notify all the listeners which are listening to our variables. So let's actually now let's do the actual values. Instead of putting in dummy values, I'll say 300. So for a break, 300. Changing to focus, I'll say 1500. For the break, long break, I'll also have 25 minutes of long break, and for a focus I'll just change to 1500. Now let's do a full restart and see if also our reset functionality is working perfectly. Okay, the problem is I have to change it here. Let me just do that, 1500, and let's also implement a 0. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20 and so on. So let's go to users.dart and create another selectable time. So of course user can also select 0. Maybe, I mean, it's like the default, right? You should have 0 in every app actually, like just a default time. Okay, now I did a full restart. Let's see what happens. There you go, 25, but 25 is not in the middle because now we added the 0. Now I have to change the offset also. So let me just go to time options and change it there. So instead of saying 155, maybe 135. Let's check that out. So I have to do a full restart. 135 actually pushes it down further, so I have to change like 185 should be good. I'm just experimenting with the initial scroll offset. I want this 25 to be in the middle because this is actually a default time, and as I added 0 now, the offset just changed. Okay, we're nearly there, maybe 200. I think this time it should be in the middle. No, 240 maybe. Let's just test it out. So yeah, I'm just checking out for each and every offset. There you go, perfectly. This is at the middle. What we're gonna do now is let's actually implement the reset functionality. So we have the reset function, but we just have to implement it, like we have to just attach it to our UI. So let's go to the app bar. So let's go to Pomodoro screen and go to the app bar. Here in reset, refresh, I'm gonna say provider dot, and as I said, when I call the function, I have to say listen false, right? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say listen is false, because I'm just calling the function, I'm not listening to anything. So now let me just run the timer and check the reset functionality. Okay, now when I click on reset, everything should be changed. Now for example, I have to have the default time again. There you go, now I have the default time again, 25 minutes. Then I also have the play button, and the rounds and goals haven't been changed because we never changed it. And yeah, that's it for the whole section, guys. I hope you learned something. First of all, you learned the change notifier, how it works. Pretty much we just have to create a service which extends the change notifier, and we just have to call a notify listeners to notify every listener. And to actually use the change notifier service, we have to get the provider package, and with the provider package we can just say provider.off with a type of timer service, and we can just use the variables in there. The advantage of the change notifier is this gave me freedom to create separate widgets in a separate folder. So I have a clean code structure, and I separated the state with the UI. So for example, I built the whole UI at the beginning, and I could just separate my state with my UI. For example, in set state, you would just call set state also middle of the code. It just looks ugly, and also it's not efficient code, right? That's why I just like change notifier. I can just differentiate between the widgets and the whole state. So yeah, I hope you learned something. Also, I hope you learn how to implement the timers. So we pretty much just convert it back to seconds, and then we convert it back to minutes and seconds. So this is how we implement a timer. With timer also we have a timer under periodic, which actually runs every second, and there we decrease the value of the current duration. And also I hope you learned how the Pomodoro timer works. You have a focus session, then you have a break session, you have a focus session, then you have again a break session, and at last, at the fourth round, you'll have a long break session. And after each focus session, the round value will be increased. So that's it for this section. Let me just see you in the next section.